Hey Obvious, I had a subscriber ask me if I could do a video walking us through removing and replacing the motor in the Traxxas four-wheel drive, specifically the brushed, the Stampede 4x4. But this process will apply to, pretty much any of these four-wheel drive chassis, the Stampede, the Rally, the Telluride, the Slash. They're all pretty much the same process to get the motor in and out. I'm not going to take us through cleaning the motor in this video. I'll do that in probably another video. For the purpose of this video, this will be like if your motor just crapped out on you, it's time to replace it. I'll show you how to remove it and then put in a new one. So you're going to need some tools for this. I recommend just have on hand a pair of pliers, some needle nose. Get a flathead screwdriver, a small one. You're going to need a 2.5, a 2.0, and a 1.5 millimeter hex wrench, or Allen key, Allen wrench, whatever you want to call it, to do this. This process really isn't too bad, but there's a couple of tricky spots. So I'll see if we can't make some good progress on this. First thing, obviously, get rid of the body. Take the body off the car so that you can work on it. And then you got to remove this gear cover right here. Now, mine's clear, but most of them are going to be black. There's a 3mm screw here, so you got to use it's a button head. You use your 2mm Allen key, Allen wrench, to take that screw out. Then you've got to pop it out, use your little flathead screwdriver, and pry this thing up. There we go. And get that thing out of the way. Now, our gear is in here. We've got the spur gear and pinion there. You can see that. To get the motor out, there's a clip down in here. You can see this right down in here. This holds the wires in place so that they're not just moving around free. Kind of keeps them restricted. That's again a 2mm hex wrench to remove that screw. Another little button head there, and that little clip will come out of the car. Okay, put that aside. We're going to need that later, but that gets your wiring out of the way. For this step, just right here, go ahead and unplug your wires. They can be kind of stiff. And that way that motor's unhooked and ready to go. Okay, now our next step is to actually remove the motor from the car. And to do that, we're gonna loosen this screw right here, this little silver screw on the motor plate. That is a 2.5 hex wrench. And these wires can get in the way. Get them out of the way. We need to take this screw completely out. And it's pretty long. This is the motor adjustment screw here. It connects to this little nut. There's a little nut right down in here. Excuse me. There's a little nut right down in here that it tightens up to. And so when you get this thing out, make sure you don't turn this truck over. That nut can fall out of there. And you need that to tighten the motor up. All right, that is out of the car. Now, we need to just turn and rotate this motor up and out. So you just pull up on the motor, rotate it, and it pops right out. There's a little key here, this little notch right here, fits down inside. There's a little, a button in here, right down in there. That will just push right down onto that, and then that'll rotate in place. And that's actually how you adjust your gear mesh too. Now that we're done with that, we've got the motor out of the truck. We can set the truck aside. All right, we've got our old motor here with the motor plate and the pinion still attached. This motor's still good, so I'm going to put this back in the car for now, but let's pretend that we are actually going to replace that. So we're going to go ahead and use the 1.5 millimeter to remove our pinion gear. Slide that off and put that aside. Then we need to remove the 2 screws that hold this to the plate. Those are 2 millimeter hexes. So use your 2 millimeter hex wrench. They're 3 millimeter screws, by the way, in case you lose one. They're a 3 by, what are they, 3 by 6 flathead. Yeah, 3 by 6 looks like. All right, take the plate off, and then you can chuck the old motor. Now, we're actually going to put this motor back in, so it's going to go in just like that. And you can see here, I've lined it up with the 2 holes, the motor mounting position right there. There's only 2 holes in each motor, so it's going to go on just like that. Now we're going to reinstall our 2 screws. Alright, now we want to make sure we get these good and tight, so nice and snug. Okay, now we want to go ahead and put the pinion back on. And see, I can see there's a little spot where my pinion, I mean, it's obvious how mine has been, but a new motor's not going to have that. So we're going to slide the pinion on with the set screw towards the motor. Doesn't matter where we put this, just as long as it's in place so we can adjust it later. We're going to just snug it up so it won't come off of the motor. Now we're ready to reinstall in the truck. Bring your truck back over, and there's a step you need to do. Mine's pretty clean. I keep on these cars pretty good, but right down in here, you can see that little groove right there. That's where this motor plate, you can see that bit sticking out right there. That motor, that will fit down inside of that groove. Now what'll happen is you'll get a lot of dirt and just crud. Whoop, I get it in your camera. You'll get a lot of dirt and crud built up down in there. Take your flathead screwdriver and just clean that out as good as you can. Work that dirt out of there, blow it out with compressed air. Use your lungs if you don't have a compressor, and get that cleaned out as good as you can, because the dirt that gets compressed in there will keep us from being able to set the pinion or set the gear mesh. So make sure you clean that out. This one obviously is in good shape, so we're ready to go ahead and reinstall our motor. Take that little notch and sit that in place on that little button in there, and then you can just rotate the motor into position just like that. Now we've got to go ahead and reinstall that motor screw. This is our adjustment screw, the big long silver one, 2.5 millimeter hex wrench to tighten that up. And we're not going to tighten this up just yet. We just need to get it in place and get it snugged up. Alright, it's starting to tighten up now. It's not quite, we can still move our motor, but it's stiff. This motor should rotate a little bit like that, but it's going to be stiff to do. And that's what we want. Now what we need to do is get the gears so that they are close together. Then we're going to set our pinion in place. I need to move it just a little bit. I need to move that gear. You can see I need to move that gear a little bit more towards the motor. Not much. We want to keep as much of the teeth connecting as possible. I'm going to say right there is nice. Looks pretty good. And snug that pinion down. Now we're ready to set our mesh. Now this is the most critical part of this, is getting that gear mesh set right. If you get it too tight and that motor's just smashed in there, that spur gear, that's gonna make a lot of gear noise. You're gonna have just, you know, your motor's gonna be struggling to move the car. It's gonna sound horrible, and you could burn your motor out really quick that way. The other way, if you have your gear mesh set too loose so that your spur gear here is just barely contacting that, you've got to, let's see if I can't even do it. There we go. That's a really loose gear mesh. See how much play is in that spur gear? That's basically, you're going to strip the top of the teeth off of your spur gear doing that. So we want to set this so that there's a little bit of lash. It's hard to do. You can use a piece of paper. You know, these are 32 pitch gears, so they're a little bit chunky. You can get a little piece of paper and stick it down there and wedge it in place and then rotate it up out of the gear. I've always done it by feel. It's, you know, once you get used to it, you just gotta be patient. This part can be kind of annoying. See if I can keep it from moving while I snug it down. And then tighten it up. Now that I've done that, let's test it again. Rotate this spur a little bit. Do this several times. Rotate the spur a little bit and then check it again. And you should be able to just slightly rock this spur gear back and forth. I don't know if you can see it moving against that or not. It's just barely a little click sound. Yeah, sounds pretty good. Not too shabby. And that's pretty much all there is to that. Now we can go ahead and plug our wires back in. Wait a minute, red to red, black to black. That seems kind of obvious, huh? And then we'll rotate the wires back down into that position, down in alongside that motor. And we'll take our wire retainer there and push that down in place. Take one of those 2 button head screws, we only have 2 left. 2mm wrench, snug that up to hold those wires. Replace our gear cover. And that's pretty much all there is to that. We're done. Time to go run it again. Well, I hope that helps you out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.